Hey everyone, it's Tamara Thompson with Video Marketing for Business podcast, and I'm super excited today because I have a special guest that I actually was able to connect with just recently. I think we've been Facebook friends for a while, but you know how you get on Facebook and you're like connected, but you're not truly connected, and the power of connection is so powerful. And I think one of the reasons that we actually truly connected was the fact that when we actually had a conversation, we had similar core values, and we had a lot of great connections that were mutual friends and things like that. And so when you're able to build those connections, it just brings up more opportunities and stories and things like that. So I'd love to introduce you to Dr. Mark Wade. He's the creator of the One Day Summit, founder of Virtual Summit Software, which is super cool. I'm like, I want to learn more about that myself. And the CEO of Viral Summits Concierge, a multiple six-figure agency. Dr. Mark T. Wade is considered a visionary in the virtual summits industry. I can attest for that because I've seen him do a lot of really cool stuff. And I'm excited because he's actually the host of the top-rated Virtual Summits podcast and the host of Summit Fest Live, which is actually going to be in New Orleans, February 3rd through 5th, 2021. I'm getting used to saying 2021 because here we are in 2021. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity. I'm going to be flying in from Arizona to New Orleans to join him and a just multiple, group of amazing entrepreneurs, speakers, and event hosts, summit hosts, agencies, producers that are going to be teaching all the people that sign up for this event to have the opportunity to learn from these great experts that have hosted successful and profitable events, especially like how to host a profitable summit, like virtual summit or event, which I've done both. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, how to host a profitable virtual summit, event, you name it, and it's going to be a bunch of fun stuff today. So definitely check out the whole podcast today. So thank you so much for joining me today, Mark. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, I am super excited to be here, Tamara. I'm also even more excited for us to be hanging out in person in New Orleans. Can't believe it's coming up so soon.
I know it's literally probably a 3 to 4 weeks away, and I'm excited to have my audience get to know you more. So definitely, if you haven't yet connected, find him on Instagram, Facebook, you name it, look up his podcast. Definitely follow Dr. Mark Wade, and I'm excited just for him to be here in general. But I would love for you to share a little bit about your background. I mean, you've done things like a lot of different things, and as a serial entrepreneur and business owner, it's good to see different revenue streams with different things, especially events and experiences. And that's what I love, is bringing people together in different ways. And I'd love to share, like, how did you get into like hosting like events, virtual events, summits? Like, what really jazzed you up about it?
Well, what got me into that direction, it actually is an interesting kind of pivot, is I'm a doctor by trade. I have two doctorates. I'm a postural neurologist, and I ran one of the most successful posture correction clinics in the country for about a decade. And I decided I wanted to help more people, like most, kind of entrepreneurs or people who are helping people. I wanted to help more people, but I didn't want to open up more clinics. So I decided to go out on this crazy idea of starting an online institute. And this is like 7-8 years ago now at this time. So it was a pretty novel idea. And I thought, I've already created one successful business. It shouldn't be too hard to create another online, right? Well, I found out pretty quickly that, just because you can do one thing doesn't mean you can do the other very well. And it took me about a year of trial and error and failure and figuring things out before I finally stumbled across this idea of a virtual summit. And I heard of it from a podcast with my now good friend, Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income. And I thought, you know what?
Pat.
Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah,
he's great.
He was in one of my documentary films back in 2015 with our buddies John Lee Dumas, which I know you know very well. So he's awesome. I just had to put that in there. Love
Yeah,
Pat.
Pat's a good guy. But I mean, at that time, I was just listening to his podcast. Hadn't met him, didn't know who he was other than from the podcast. And I heard that concept of a virtual summit. I think he was actually interviewing Lewis Howes at the time about that. But I was like, I've tried everything else. Let's give this thing a go. Now, I didn't really have any experience. I didn't really have any connections in the sense I didn't have like authority or influence in my space yet. I was just kind of getting started. And so I set out to actually host a multi-day virtual summit, but I actually only was able to get 7 speakers. Now, luckily, I have a pretty solid ego, and so my ego wouldn't let me tell those 7 people that I couldn't do it. So I decided to just go ahead and do it as a one-day summit. And I'm really glad we did. That one-day summit ended up generating around 5,000 leads and around $32,000, which at that time was like the first success we'd really had online. But the really cool thing is the backbone of that summit ended up becoming a certification we created, which became a $1 million certification. And then that online institute became a multi-million-dollar institute. I'm a big nerd, as I said, 2 doctorates, but I'm also dense. So when I find something that works, I kind of double down, triple down into it. So we started running 2 to 4 multi-day summits, 4 to 8 one-day summits every year in that company, which is still there today, as well as my other companies. And that's really what got me into doing summits. What led me into creating the first platform for virtual summits was I got really frustrated that it was so hard to do summits. Like I had a team, I think, of 4 people full time that were running these summits for us. And I kept looking at it as like, you can do a webinar relatively easy with no tech skill. You can do a course pretty quick without having to code the internet or anything. Like, why is a summit so complicated? So about 4 years ago, 5 years ago at this point, I set out on the journey to then become a SaaS founder, I guess, create the first platform ever created for hosting virtual summits called Virtual Summit Software. And then once I got the taste of helping other people get their messages out to the world, which is what I look at, virtual summits and virtual events, I was hooked. Like I went full into that. So I left my other company and went full into the Virtual Summit Software. And since then, for the last 4 years, I've been helping people create their summits and their virtual events.
I love that. Yeah, I remember back in 2015 when I hosted my first actual in-person live event. That really got me jazzed up. And, it was a smaller event, but the fact that I went through it, I put it on, I had to show up, when you commit to something, you show up. Like that's like one of my biggest proponents. And so I think our first real live event, we had about 45 attendees or something like that. And then the next year had over 100 attendees and so on. And then it started growing 150, going on to that. And then I thought to myself, I had this big goal, audacious goal. And it was a really, really crazy year. So back in 2017, I thought to myself, well, I'm going to host 3 events in 1 year. I was like, in-person events. I was like, learned my lesson there. And so I realized, going through that process, it was actually a really, really hard year for me. So during that process, I hosted 2 events. And then within a week after the second event, my father passed away. And then from there, it was kind of a spiral. And then it was one of those moments in our business too, where we're dealing with a situation with what we call probably it was a nightmare client at the time. And so you always try to keep the composure. You always want to listen to the client needs. No matter if you're in the middle of grieving and loss, you have to always put the client, first and listen to them. And so it was just a crazy year. And by the time I hosted the 3rd event after that, I was like, it probably would have been a lot easier if I hosted a virtual event versus trying to figure out that piece of it. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on when you, because I know you've done masterminds events and like that, but what was it? I know for me, when I switched to virtual events, it became so much less of a burden to putting together and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about how you've hosted virtual events versus summits and how that's helped your business versus in an in-person event, even though in-person events are really cool too?
Yeah, I mean, we play into a little bit of everything. I spend most of my time in virtual summits, in the virtual summit world. I'm an extrovert by nature though. So I like in-person events. I mean, I used to be an in-person event junkie. I'd go to all of them. And that's actually why we started Summit Fest Live. So Summit Fest Live is an in-person conference, and that's how it started, is to actually bring people who live in the virtual world together under a common kind of vision or theme. But and I agree with you. We have virtual workshops. I have an online mastermind, etc. I do think there is for sure always going to be a need for in person. But what has become super evident is that a lot of people who were doing in person events that maybe thought they could only do it in person have now had their eyes open to wait, maybe I can actually do most or all of this virtually, potentially lower a lot of the overhead and still provide amazing value. And I think, we've all seen that to some degree. And I think I think 2021 is going to be the year of hybrid. I think we're going to see a lot of even the in-person events that do start to come back in person are still going to leave that virtual side of it for two reasons. One, it allows you to expand to a whole new audience, maybe that don't want to travel, even outside of the COVID world. Maybe they're just like, I like to be at home. But two, it also is a bit of an insurance plan. If you're already planning for something to be virtual, if you have to go full virtual, it's not the end of the world. But I do like how you brought up, a virtual summit versus a virtual event, because I see a lot of people kind of get confused over this terminology. They're like, what's the difference? Well, technically, a virtual summit is a virtual event. So when we say virtual events, it kind of encompasses everything. But the two specific type of virtual events we're kind of talking about right now, which are different, are like a live streamed conference versus a virtual summit. And I deal a lot in the virtual summit space, and how we define that, or how we would say that, is it's a historically pre-recorded set of interviews or presentations that solves a problem or series of problems by bringing together niche or topic experts to speak on those topics for a set period of time. And it's typically free to attend. So what's really powerful with that is it's a really great way. It's what we call a collaborative marketing strategy to bring in an audience, to build an audience, have them create know, like, and trust with you. So build a relationship with you to then move further in their customer journey with you. So it's not really a huge monetization strategy with the summit, although most summits make some money. It's really about building an audience that then knows you and likes you and trusts you to then move forward with you in your other products and services. Now, with a live stream conference, and again, these are kind of generic definitions, but with live stream conference, we typically see that done more to a warm audience, an audience that already kind of knows you, because it's typically paid access. They pay to get access to that. And by definition, live stream, it is live the whole time, with the primary goal of creating a lot of excitement, interest, and motivation to usually purchase something of a higher ticket value, like maybe a mastermind, maybe a coaching program, something like that. So live stream conferences are really great for helping motivate our audiences to take action, which turns into revenue. So both of these extremely powerful, but have slightly different goals and objectives.
I love that. Yeah. And it's cool because you're going to be covering a lot of this stuff, deep dive into these things. You're actually creating 3 days of content live. And I like the fact that you're holding a hybrid event, and the motto is you choose, right? So you can show up in person, those that feel comfortable, or maybe those that are local to New Orleans. Definitely recommend coming out in person to put on, bringing that experience together. Or you have the option for the virtual ticket. I believe it's still early bird right now, possibly they'll probably go up soon. So definitely check out that early bird ticket price. But I like how you actually put it in tracks. You called it like 3 tracks. So like day 1's virtual summit host, day 2 virtual event hosts. That's more on like what I focus on. And then day 3 virtual event agencies and producers. And you've got quite a rock star lineup and some awesome special guests and experiences. I believe you have DJ Sammy. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got DJ Sammy, how you connected with him, or maybe you know him, and list a lineup for me? Like, share a little bit about the topics that are going to be shared. I'd love you to kind of go through the 3 tracks, 3 days of what people should expect from Summit Live Fest in New Orleans. I'm just, Summit Fest Live, so I'm excited about this so much.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. So it started off when we first hosted this. It is an in-person conference, is what it is. This year we're hosting it hybrid style, which the theme is you choose, like you said, and it started off focused just on virtual summits, which is really my area of expertise. But then we've decided, because there's so many people with so much interest, both in summits, but live stream conferences, virtual workshops, online masterminds, challenges, etc., that there really needs to be a place for everybody to go and get that information. Now, I'm not the expert in all of it, so I'm not going to sit there and try and teach all of it, but I thought, what if, one of the skills or talents I have is bringing really smart and talented people together to share that information. So the conference, Summit Fest Live, is to learn how to create super summits and mega virtual events, whether it's your first one or your next one, and to come learn about the fastest growing industry in online business. And I personally believe that. Now, we decided, okay, there's restrictions, and of course in person we're going to be following all the appropriate safety measures, and all of that's taken into consideration. So we have to minimize the amount of people we can actually have in the conference. But I was like, you know what? One of the best parts of this conference, of Summit Fest Live, is the interaction with the speakers. So as a speaker yourself, being able to interact with all of these other extremely talented and skilled and smart people, collaborations galore come out. So what we said is, well, let's reserve a few spots. We call them super VIP spots, to allow about 5 to 10 people to actually come and be with us. Now, the people who are there with us, it's like they're getting an entire conference created for themselves. It's an unbelievable opportunity. But with that being said, we know a lot of people are either not ready to travel yet, or they're like, Mark, I like staying in my slippers. I don't want to put on real clothes yet. So we said, you choose. You can come, and we are going to be streaming it live in real time, interactively, meaning we've got TV set up with all the images, interactive. So even if you're streaming it with one of our virtual passes, you're going to be able to actually interact with the speakers, ask questions. We have hot seats, and I haven't even released all this information yet to the speakers, Tamara, is we have additional content built into the program for our virtual attendees, for our virtual passes. Now, the reason is, and we actually have a couple speakers who will be teaching on hybrid events, is you can't, the way you engage an audience in person and virtually are different. So with a hybrid event, you got to be able to do both of them. So we've got people talking about that. And one of the things we're doing with this is, in the break times where in person we're going from room to room, we actually have additional bonus sessions, hot seats, breakouts, live trainings, like additional things that our virtual attendees are going to get. So and in person, we have some evening activities, and virtually we have virtual experiences that are being planned. So the cool thing about this is, not only are you learning from not just people who are hypothetically teaching, but people who are literally, like Tamara, out there doing this every day. They know what works right now, not what worked 5 years ago, but what works right now, teaching that. You're also going to be kind of Matrix style, your Inception style, you're in the middle of one. So you can look around and say, oh, this is how it feels. This is how it looks. And when it comes to the topics, as you were mentioning, the one thing I want to clarify, we're actually, with the tracks, we're not theming it per day. We're going to intertwine it. So there's more than one session happening at a time. So the you choose actually plays into the content as well. So if you're more interested in learning about summits, there's going to be a session on summits happening. If you're more interested in learning something specific about the live streaming conference or the hybrid event or a challenge, there'll be sessions happening on that. So you actually get to choose the content you want to have in real time as well.
That fits in with your you choose, all around. Then that's a really cool motto to have. And I love the fact that you're bringing in experiences too. So, and that's actually the topic that I'm going to share one of the days there too, upsell an experience to cover your virtual event, costs and expenses. That's one of the things that people, when they are starting out, maybe their mindset isn't quite there, or they have some fear stepping into hosting an event. It's just like hosting an event, or even getting on a podcast interview. Sometimes, some people probably get butterflies or nervous. I know when I host my events, I still get butterflies 10 minutes before stage. I'm like, why in the world am I nervous? And then as soon as I step foot on that stage, I'm like, boom, I'm in my element, and I love it. It's the same way even with podcast interviews. I'm always I know my stuff so well, and I've done like thousands of interviews that, from the media to podcasts to my own shows to live streams, but I always get that like little, tingly feeling. But I think what's really done a big success with our events from, virtual events and in-person events for us. And I can't wait to host real events again, potentially probably go into hybrids with my next one with my 8th event. So I'll probably switch over there and be just like Dr. Mark Wade over here. I'll be like, hybrid. And I'll be like, and I'm going to invite you, sir, to come speak on this exactly. And so that's what I love, and I'm really passionate about, because I've been able to help other people host their own events by giving them a few tips here and there on how to cover expenses. And so I'm really excited about that, because upsells and experiences, people want that factor of being a part of something. So it's that FOMO that people get, that fear of missing out. They're like, oh, well, I want to be in that room with all those speakers, if it's virtually or not. You can step into a Zoom room and be like doing fun stuff, and you send out boxes to people with maybe they do like a cheers or something, but you've sent out a branded box with their little cheers glass or something, so people feel like they're a part of something virtually or not. So I'm really excited to be covering that on my topic when I'm there in New Orleans. So I'm really excited to join you there February 3rd through the 5th. What other types of things can you name drop a few of the other like awesome people that are going to be there? I'd love to share that with them too.
Well, definitely name drop those topics, and the names going to be sharing to reiterate the importance of your topic that you're going to be sharing, why people should jump into this. Most of the people I know that don't take action on a virtual event is for that reason. They're like, well, I don't want to put all this time and energy and invest all this money into it, and maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe it doesn't do as well as I want, and then I'm just out of this. I mean, your topic is so ninja because it removes, like on top of monetizing, it removes a lot of the risk. So for anybody listening to this that's like, I really should be doing a virtual event, because honestly, we all should be doing a virtual event.
You don't have anything to lose, like when you put the effort in, when you put the people and the team members behind you, they can, like with your assistant, she's out there sending out emails to the speakers. She's getting them their pictures to promote. She's getting the set up for affiliate links, like things that people don't really think about. They're like, what's this? Like, do I need this for mine? You can start off small, but you can grow with it. Keep your expenses lower in the beginning for the first one, because you're going to have these like screens and cameras, different things like streaming programs, and things cost money, right? But then people can also start off at home for a virtual summit, things like that. Start off with a summit, then go into your virtual event after you've hosted a summit first, built your list, just like you were saying. You can do things basically, get a ring light for $100, and then, host everything on Zoom for basically free. And then, it's like different things like that. But then when you really want to target and actually generate profitable events and summits like that, like really figure out what's that call to action. What are the people that your list or the audience really want to hear, know, things like that. Don't just assume people want to hear something or experience something. Ask them first, put out polls and things like that. Say, what do you guys want to hear on this summit? Who are the speakers that you'd like to hear from? Or what type of topics do you want to hear? Because once you start doing that and you start filling in the spaces of the individuals that are experts in that realm, then they're there to teach for your audience. So Mark's able to build out these experiences too. And he's got these power partners in the place too. But I think one of the biggest components too is building relationships with these speakers and people on your summits long term, so that you can come back and ask them to be a part of it again. Or maybe it's, they'll turn around and in return, they'll say, hey, Tamara, I want you to be on my summit next time. Or Mark, I want you to speak at my next virtual event or my hybrid event. We like to travel, right? So it's like thinking long-term too. Like, don't just put together an event because you're like, oh, I just want to build my list, right? You want to build relationships. You want to build following. You want to build fan base. You want to build influence. And be that authority online, or in person, or both, because the more that you're actually there and you're producing these summits, like you said, you're creating things like every quarter, right? Like you're having things going consistently. And when you're consistent, so when you basically courage, clarity, and consistency, anything can happen. So I'm really excited about this event. It's
going to be an absolute blast. So some of the other topics, like one of the things I'll say is when I chose the speakers, one of the things I'm very particular is I don't just look for like headliners. I'm not just like, I got my buddy John Lee Dumas and Lewis Howes and, Davin Michaels and people like that, but they're not doing virtual events on a regular basis. So I'm not going to have them talk on this. Every single person who's speaking at this event has been vetted and has been checked to make sure they are doing right now the things they're teaching on. So that's one of the things I'm very particular at, and I want everybody to know is if you're listening to this person teach it, it's because they've done it. It's not a hypothetical, it's not a theoretical. It is a strategic and implementable tactic that you can put into your first or your next virtual event. So and I really wanted to be sure we covered a variety of different topics. And to clarify that is we don't have 30 people going, here's how you build a summit, or here's how you do a live stream conference. We're getting in and talking about some of the specific tactics into these. A couple examples. We got Michael Kilpatrick. He's talking about how to actually use a virtual summit to enter into a brand new niche. So for anybody who's looking to go into a new market, a new demographic, a new avatar, he'll be covering that. We got Wendy Freeman, who's talking about how to maximize breakout sessions the right way to increase engagement on your virtual event. Dr. Krista Burns is going to talk about a yearly summit profitability plan that scales to multiple six figures. So instead of just doing a one-off event, how can you actually plan, just like you do a promo calendar, how can you plan your summits out that continues to drive revenue into your business? Aaron Loman-Jack is going to be talking about how to monetize your event with the perfect pitch from a virtual stage. Like many of our speakers out there, they know how to do a pitch, for example, from stage in person, but those don't directly transfer over into a virtual stage. There's different components. We've got Mike Broadwell, who's going to be talking about how to use co-hosts. So one of the cool things he does on his summit is, and I know this relates for a lot of the people listening here, they're like, I want to do it, but man, that's so much work. I just don't have a whole lot of time to do all of it. Well, he talks about how he uses 4 hosts on all of his summits to leverage that work, to leverage that kind of strength, so he doesn't have to do it all. Another big one, which I think is super important, is Ashley Filling is going to be talking legally. You don't know what you don't know about virtual events. She's an attorney who specializes in virtual events, so getting that information there. We've got Sean Osborne talking about summit tech setups that don't break the bank. Allison Melody, Sponsors 101, how to build a sponsor deck. Luke Wade, how to improve your virtual event with an experience. We've got Cole Whitty, which I think this is not a topic you would normally think about, but her summit system, she's actually a shamanista, like a female version of a shaman, who has done summits. She works with high level 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs and has done summits. And she's going to be talking about the summit system, a launch plan for a solopreneur, how to prevent the health crash. I'm sure, Tamara, you back me up on this. A lot of times, if you just go into a virtual event or a virtual summit, you don't plan for it, plan your food, your rest, your other aspects, that you can come out on the other side wrecked. Your body is just drained and kind of crashed. So that's a cool topic.
Yeah. I definitely know about that piece. Like I always set myself up to be able to, set my intention, like where I know I need to put my energy forth, keep that energy. I've been so fortunate and grateful that I've been able to manage my energy really well with hosting events, but also attending events, because when you go into a space and you understand your energy levels, like you have to be able to keep it up. One of my last in-person events, so I had like Mari Smith, Sean Cannell, Randy Zuckerberg, things like that. People were there, and we went from 8 o'clock in the morning to midnight the first night of the day. And then I had to get up and go 8 o'clock the next day. And then we had a VIP party that went to 11:30 the next night. And then the closing night, we ended up closing a little bit early. So, but it still went to like 8 to 6, right? So you have to think the same way, even when you're holding virtual events or hybrid events, or you have a little bit more control on some of the summits because it's pre-recorded interviews and things like that you can manage, like setting up schedules. But yeah, for like summits, I basically pre-record videos. Like I'd set them up like this. I know I can record 5 interviews back to back to back. And I'm excited to have these speakers share different things that I know that have worked for me. And they're going to help everybody that's listening and attending these events. But energy is huge. And I love the one that you brought up on like sponsorships too, because that's one of the elements that I share within ours, because basically I always build relationships first and ask those connections first, because we have sponsors come back time and time again, and you want to have these sponsors come through and, sponsor your, either they can speak on your summits, build rapport there, then they sponsor your virtual events. Then you can actually ask them to sponsor things like your podcast. Like, there's so many different ways to expand your mind on how you can be profitable from events. And so again, I'm super grateful for the opportunity to be able to come out and join you. And I'm going to share this link in the description below through all the posts and everything like that, so you guys can jump on your early bird tickets as well. So I'd love to see those that are willing to travel out or are in New Orleans, or I know a lot of my list tend to buy virtual event tickets quite a bit, so I'm excited to send that out to all of you that are listening. Mark, do you have any last quick tips or anything that you're excited about before we wrap up this podcast today?
Yeah, well, one, thank you so much for having me on here. I am so stoked to actually hang out with you in person. And of course, anybody who's listening to this right now is in the right place. Tamara, you absolutely are crushing it in this space. So I'm so excited for you to come share with the rest of our audiences. I'd say, when it comes to the current climate, the current world, there's, one of those things I always say, tomorrow's going to happen. Like 3 months are going to go by one way or the other. The question is, what have we done in those 3 months? And when it comes down to our businesses, it really doesn't matter what type of business, what industry, or what niche. We can all benefit from some component of some virtual component, whether it's a virtual summit or live stream conference or a virtual workshop. There's something that can add on revenue, prestige, authority, and influence to your business. Now, the challenge is trying to figure this out on your own. There's a huge learning curve. What Tamara and I had to do on our own to figure this out took years, decades, right? And lots of time, energy, and money to figure it out. Luckily, people don't have to do that anymore. They can come and learn from, the experience and wisdom that Tamara has, from the wisdom and experience from these other speakers. And on top of that, hopefully, we're going to get to hang out virtually. We're all going to hang out. We get to build this network, this relationship, this collaboration together, because I believe that those who are going to be interested in this, in these components, these virtual events, we have a bright future. It is the fastest growing space right now, fastest growing space in business. So why not jump on the train and get into it early?
Yeah, and I want to add to that, Mark. It's really the sense of when you reach success, it really is about learning and actually taking the actionable steps. So if you're considering hosting a virtual summit or a virtual event, like, it's not about just being like, oh, well, I'm not planning on doing that till the end of 2021. You want to learn the right steps now. Like, don't ever wait. In the middle of the pandemic, I hosted a virtual event, a 3-day event, invited my power partners, some influential people like Anthony Melchiori from Hotel Impossible's Travel Channel, Glenn Morshower, he's an actor that's on The Resident right now, and he's been in Transformers and all these amazing shows. And they said, you built a relationship with us, Tamara. We'd love to come out and support and be on your virtual event. So we had some great people there and other people that were inspiring people during the pandemic on how to shift. And it was a shift virtual event series. But the fact is when I saw things happening during the pandemic, and not everybody, but many people were freaking out and had to shift their business model, I had to think like, well, I'm not going to be holding a in-person event, so I must go forward with this. I must do this. I need to reach more people right now, because it's more opportunity with more people moving online, more people were watching YouTube, more people were starting podcasts, more people were wanting to be inspired, and so that's what's really cool about this is, if you're really thinking about something, if that's just even in your head at this point of the, like, yes, this interests me. Yes, I want to do this in the future. This is something that you want to attend now. because you need to set yourself up for success and understand how to host these, how to do them successfully, and how to connect with other great people. So I highly encourage everybody to grab that ticket if it's virtual, or if you'd like to join the hybrid in-person experience, definitely come out and join us. And I'm super excited for this. So thank you so much, Mark, for just joining me today. And I'm so grateful, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
It's going to be a blast. Again, Tamara, thanks so much for having me here.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Everybody have a good day, and I'll see you next week.